Do you know that you can actually run your code without servers? Yes, you can actually run your code without servers. Wait, so you actually don't know this thing and you call yourself a software engineer? Shame on you. Remove that title from your resume. Anyway, how do you actually run your code without servers? What we do is that we use AWS Lambda. As a cloud engineer, as a DevOps engineer, you're meant to know this. We use AWS Lambda to run it. So what is AWS Lambda? AWS Lambda is a compute service, is a serverless compute service. Now what it does is that it runs your code automatically through a trigger. So servers run your code by manually updating it, by manually running this every single time it runs the code. But then with AWS Lambda, what it does is that when you deploy your code, it runs it automatically with trigger. So all you just need to do is that you need to just put a trigger. So you set a trigger and then it automatically runs your code. And the beautiful thing about this is that you only get to pay for the seconds that it runs. Also, we are going to be demoing on how we actually use AWS Lambda. So we are going to take our Python code, right, and then we're going to deploy it, our Python code, which is our Flask code, and we're going to deploy it to the cloud, to AWS Lambda. I've already packaged everything, so all you just need to do is just watch this course to the end and you will know how to use AWS Lambda like a pro. Now let's talk about the tech companies that make use of AWS Lambda. So what are the tech companies that make use of AWS Lambda? So we have Netflix. So for video, Netflix uses AWS Lambda for video encoding and for backend services. So we have the likes of Nordstorm, Slack. We have the likes of Airbnb. We have the likes of Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola uses AWS Lambda for I think vendor machine data or something like that. So now let us talk about AWS Lambda billing and cost. Now, how does AWS bill you when you're using AWS Lambda? So there are two ways they bill you. So they bill you for the number of requests that you make and the compute cost. Let me explain. So let's start with the number of requests. So for the month, your first 1 million requests is free. Yes, free. Thank you AWS for that. And then after your first 1 million requests, so the next request that you make is if you make the next 1 million requests after the first 1 million request that is free, you pay $0.20. Yes, for the next 1 million requests that you make. And then after that, let's say you now make another 1 million requests, you pay $0.20 is the compute time. So this one is a very, very tricky one, and let's calculate it. So first of all, the first parameter we have to look at the number of requests that you make. Let's keep that on one side. The second parameter we look at is the seconds that it took to write the function, to automate the function, or to execute the function. So the number of requests that you make plus multiplied by the seconds that it takes to compute the function, the Python function, and then multiply it by the compute, the memory. That's why I said in the previous one, I said 0.0006 gig per second. So it also charges for the amount of storage, for the amount of RAM that you used, and then it also charges you 0.00001667. So let's calculate it. So let's say I make up to 1 million requests to that function. We'll put 1 million there, multiplied by, let's say it takes maybe 1 second to run the Python function, multiplied by 1 second. Let's say I'm using 1 gig RAM. I'm using 1 gig, which is 500 and okay. I'm using 1 gig RAM, which is 100112 MB, which is 1 gig RAM, and then multiplied by 0.00017. You do the math. I think it should be around $0.80. Yes. So it's also all that function you did and everything you did will cost you $0.08. You see why I said it's cheap? You see why I said it's very, very cheap? It's very, very great. Now, what are we going to be doing in this course? Now, should have talked about AWS Amplify, but because of the fact that I want this video to be short, it takes a long time for you to upload a very long video. So I want to shorten this video so that I can upload this thing with enough data. Okay, so what are we going to do in this course? I think, okay, maybe in another course I will deal with AWS Amplify. So what are we going to be doing in this course? We're going to be deploying our Flask file, which is a video, which is kind of an audio processor. So you make an audio, you say what you want it to do, you say it on your React app, and then it sends it to the Flask file, and then it processes and then gives you a voice response. So it gives you a response in a speech manner. It gives you a speech response. It can set calendar, it can Google, it can research, many things. So we're going to be deploying our Python files, which is going to be in Flask format. We're going to be deploying it to Lambda, AWS Lambda, and then we're also going to be deploying our React app to Amplify, and then we are going to connect them with API gateway. So stay tuned, because in this course we are going to learn all this. So here's the diagram. Our user goes to our React file, which is our React app, which is on AWS Amplify. It makes a request, and then the React app, which uses makes a request to API gateway. Then API gateway makes a request to AWS Lambda. Yes, that's what we're going to be doing. So stay tuned. This video is going to be, I will try as much as possible to shorten everything, and then we are going to be creating, before I forget, we are going to be creating the infrastructure with Terraform, and then we're going to be automating it with GitHub Actions from CI/CD. Okay guys, welcome back. So let's go straight to the points. So before we actually start anything, before we learn anything in this tutorial, before we go over anything, first of all, let us start by studying the structure of our folder. So let's start by understanding how our folders are being structured in order for this code to run. So I want you to first look over here to my left. I hope you guys are hearing me. I want you to first of all look over here to the left. Now this is my front end folder. This is my front end code, which is AI project. So this is around this is the node modules, the libraries that is being used to run the code, along with our source folder and public, along with the assets and the components and the app.txt, something like. And then this is my URL. So I will put my API gateway URL here. So I think you guys will understand this one later. And then okay, this is the same one. Okay, I think they're the same thing. They're the same. It's just okay, I can get to delete one, I can get to keep one. So this is my index.html, my package.log, and all this stuff. So this is my front end code. This is my front end folder. By the way, this is our location. This is our, where's my code? This is our location. Okay, so this is where we are in VS Code. As you can see, this is where we are in VS Code. Okay, so let's do this mistake back. So this is where we are in VS Code. Here's my front end code. Here's my Flask code. Here's my Terraform code, and here's my deploy.psi. So this is where we are in our VS Code. So just to get rid of any confusion. Okay, so this is my front end code, and now this is my back end code. This is my Flask file, along with the libraries. This is the FmpEg, which handles my audio processing. This handles my audio processing, which turns audio to text. So this is the FmpEg. This is the .xe, but I removed the .xe because for our lambda, because of this our lambda. So later on, I think you understand why I did this. And then this is the ff probe, which is also a .xe, but then I removed the .xe library, the .xe extension. Later on we'll understand why I did that. So let me just keep this one. So this is our upload folder, not important. So this is my assistant.py code. This is the code that turns your audio to text, and then also gives you a response in an audio format. It can make it handles conversation, basic conversations. It's sets calendar, it also does reminder. It also performs web search. As you can see, there is a function for my web search. It's a small Python code that we can use to practice, or to it's a very, very good example for learning triggers, learning how to use triggers. So this is my small, as you can, okay, I've not really installed the libraries, but I will soon do that. Okay, when we run the code, it will do that. So here is my build lamp. So this code is responsible for building this Flask file and then turning it into a .zip file. It handles the requirement.txt. It copies the code. It takes care of the fmpeg, and then basically everything. So let us go through it and let us know what it does. Okay, so this creates a directory, a folder named package, which carries, I think mostly which carries our code, our libraries, and this folder, which is our ffmpeg folder and fmprobe folder. So this carries most of our code. So as you can see here, this is telling you to create a package directory and then copy the code, copy the assistant.py code along with our requirement.txt to the .package. Okay, when you now copy it, install all the libraries that are there, and then after that, copy the fmpeg and the ffprobe file all the way to the package /bin folder, and then create a zip folder and then zip the folder, and then the .zip will be sent to Lambda. This holds our requirement.txt. I think we should all know this by now. We should all know what requirement.txt is. This carries our libraries that is mainly used for our Python functions. So we'll come out of here for now. Let us go through our Terraform folder. So as you all know, Terraform is made for creating infrastructures on AWS. So we all know this, but I think we should all know this by now. So this holds the required provider. So this tells Terraform where we are creating this infrastructure on AWS. This is our source. This is our source of Terraform. There are many other sources, but this is our source. Where we're going to be getting our Terraform structures and folder from. This is our version. I don't think there are any other recent versions. So we are going to be using 5.0 for now, and then this is telling Terraform our region. So we are meant to do this on EU North. Anybody that follows my tutorial knows that anybody that follows my tutorial knows that I mostly do create my infrastructure on EU North. I just love this region. Okay, so this provides our region, which we're going to be doing on EU North 1. And then this is to create our S3 buckets. Like, the reason why we are going to be using our S3 buckets for Lambda, normally we can actually do it without the S3 buckets, but because of our file, because of all the files that is going to carry, including the package, the build, including the package, the .zip file, the requirement.txt is going to be very, very large, and we cannot just all send all that to Lambda. So we have to put some of these files, we have to put this folder in S3 buckets, and then we have to trigger and configure our Lambda function to actually talk with S3 buckets, to actually get most of the code from S3 buckets. So that's why we are actually creating S3 buckets. Now, this particular resource, this particular code, this one is responsible for creating an ownership. So it's almost telling us that it's telling AWS S3 bucket that it should only be Lambda that should be able to access the code. So it will be only Lambda that should be able to access, which is why it's mostly called an ownership control this thing, because it only lets Lambda to make a request to the S3 bucket. Any other thing that tries to make a request to S3 bucket is to immediately block it. Thus the ACL, I think this is the same thing. And then this function is to upload our Lambda code all the way to S3 buckets. So as we create the S3 buckets, we configure the ownership control along with the ACL, and then we upload our folder to S3 buckets, including the .zip file, and then we also tell our Lambda function where to access. So now let's say the Lambda function wants to run the code. We need to configure it. We need to tell it where to access the Lambda code. So the lambda.zip file. So the name of our backend file is Flask file. So it should come out of the directory and it should enter Flask file. And then in that Flask file, look for lambda deployment.zip package. Package.zip. And then we're also going to be configuring the IAM role, which is the role for Lambda to almost like to enable our IAM role to create Lambda, to make Lambda. So we're also going to be configuring the IAM policy. I think we should all know this by now. So this should be the function. We're going to be using Python 3.9, and the reason why we are using Python 3.9 is because it's quite stable for this Lambda function. If we use 10 or 11, we are not really sure if all these libraries will be able to install on Python 10 or 11 or higher and all that. So we need to use a stable Python version. This is our name of the S3 buckets, along with the Lambda key, Lambda code key, our function name, which is going to be voice assistant backend and all that, our memory size. Because we are all taking everything, our whole Lambda code to S3 bucket, we can now use a smaller memory size. Now if we are going to be deploying all of our Lambda code on Lambda on the computer itself, which is the compute service itself, then we have to increase our memory size to close to maybe 2 gig RAM or 4 gig RAM. Now because of the fact that we are only dropping all of our folder on S3 bucket, and we configured Lambda to talk to the S3 bucket to get the code from S3 bucket, then we can now allocate a smaller memory size to it, and then we create our environment variable, which is going to be holding our weather API key, along with our API gateway, which is going to be handling the APIs, which is the way in which the front end communicates with the backend, communicate Lambda and all that. Okay, so this is Lambda permission. All these ones are not really important. This is the proxy. I think we should always need to just copy this code. All these ones are not really important. So this gives permission for API gateway to Lambda. So this allows API gateway to be able to communicate with Lambda. Almost like it's a permission to accept any API gateway request that is being made, because the front end will be the one to making the request to the API gateway, and then the API gateway will talk with our backend code, our Lambda and all that. So this is our output API URL. So this is going to be our output of the Lambda endpoints. That's the Lambda function endpoints. Okay, and then this is going to be our variable, which will hold our open weather API key and all that. So I think we're done with the Terraform. Now this is the main function, that the main deploy.psi that runs every other thing. So first of all, it checks for it checks for checks if AWS CLI is installed. It checks if Node version is installed, and it checks if Python is also installed. So if any of these are not really installed, then what it does that it displays an error and it terminates the whole code, terminates the function, like stops it from running. So okay, and then this also takes in the parameter for the API key. So I think it checks that. Okay, this is not really important. So like I said, it will try and to check if we have to check if AWS, if you have authentication, if you have authenticated your AWS credentials, like you have written down your AWS credentials. It checks that, and if it actually sees that it's null, it throws in an error and then it exits. So after it's done checking for the AWS CLI, the Node version, the Python, and it's done checking for the authentication, and it sees that all of these credentials are there, then what happens now is that it enters into our backend, which is this, and then it builds it. So it enters into our backend and it builds our backend, which is .psi. It builds our lambda build function. It triggers it, as you can see, /build lambda.psi, which is this file. I think I've went through this earlier. So it triggers the .psi, which builds the whole function, and then it creates a .zip file and a package folder. And then after it's done, it comes out. So it kind of go one directory up, and then it enters Terraform, which is the CD Terraform, which is our Terraform folder. It enters this Terraform folder, and then it initializes it. Now what it means to initialize is to install all the libraries and the codes that is needed to run our Terraform, which is our infrastructure as code. And then it plans the Terraform, and then it deploys it. So it also, as it applies it, it asks for your API key. It asks for the API key, so you kind of like put it there, and then you run it, and then it creates the infrastructure. After it's done, it displays our API URL, our API gateway URL. So after when it displays it, we will now go into our front end folder, and then we replace this with the API gateway URL, which is the place where the front end will be making a request to the backend. I hope I'm not making this so complicated. Okay. And then after it's done, it goes back and then it enters our front end, which is this, and then it installs the dependency, and then it builds it. And then after it's done building it, then what we'll now do is that I will go to Netlify and I will upload the builds folder, the /dist folder. So yeah, that's it. And then it kind of gives you the instructions on how to go about it. So go to your netlify.com, drag the front end /dist folder, and then it will be displayed. So yeah, let's run it. Okay, so before you run this code, let me just check. Wow, okay, I think I'm using quite a lot of CPU power. Okay, so before you run this code, you first of all want to make sure that you have authenticated you have added in your AWS credentials. It is very necessary and it's very important for you to add in your AWS credentials. So all you just need to do is type AWS configure. I didn't even spell it right. Configure. AWS configure. Then it should prompt you to put in your access key, and the rest, your access key, your secret key, your default region, and your JSON listing. So after it's done, so if you don't really need to, I've already done that, so I don't need to do my own. So after you're done, you put in your access key, First of all, you put in your secret key, your region, and your output. Just put in JSON at this place, and then after it's done, it will authenticate you. And then the next thing you want to do is that you're going to run this. So you guys, you already know where my location is. I already said that I'm right. This my PowerShell directory is pointing straight to this project right here. It's pointing straight to this project, as you can see. This is where it is. So it runs the deploy.psi. The deploy.psi enters into our this and then builds it. After it's done, it comes out, automates the Terraform, and then builds the front end. So let us run it and let us see how it will work. Okay. So it's starting. Okay, so it has built the backend for the Lambda. It's still building it. Okay, it's installing the requirement.txt for requirement.txt files. So that's what it's doing. So I think, should we wait? Okay, I think I will just fast track all of this. Let me move this. So I guess it's installing all the speech recognition that is needed. I think I should pause it so that after it's done, I'll now okay. So it's done installing all the Python required. That's the pip, and it's creating the Lambda the .zip. It's creating it, so it's creating the .zip package. So it's done installing it's done copying the Python code. And it's done installing the requirement.txt. What it's now doing is that it's creating the .zip package that is needed that is going to be uploaded to Lambda. Okay. Let me pause it again. Okay, so as it says here, it's done creating the lambda.zip. Now we see an error here. Now I think I made a mistake in writing the codes for the color. So this foreground color, I think it says specify a parameter of a type of system.console color and try again. So probably is not really going to affect our code. It's a color, it's an error. It shouldn't really affect our code. I think we made the error right here because we are at this place. Okay, I think we made the error right here. The foreground color here. So you see, where is it? So you see the foreground color. So this is where we made the error, but don't worry, it shouldn't really affect our code. As you can see, it's already done creating the .zip file, and it has created the package folder which carries our requirements.txt libraries that we need to run the code and all that, including our ff and peg and all that. So yeah, and including the Python code. So yeah, so what it's doing now is that it's initializing the Terraform. So it's installing all like I said, our source will be from Hashcode. So it's going to be downloading all the files and the folder that is going to be needed to run this Terraform from this source, which is called this place. I think this thing called Hashcode and all that. and it's going to take a very long time. So let me pause this video, and then when it's done, I will now. Okay, as you can see, I think it's successfully been initialized, and you will see it in this folder, which has created the .log file, the Terraform states, the main.tf, the Terraform.tf, the variable, and all that, including the Terraform folder and everything that is needed to run Terraform. So all we just have to do is, put in my weather API key. Let me put it in. So I've already put it in. I pressed, I right clicked, so which means it has already entered the value. So all I need to do is enter, and it's going to start creating and planning everything. Okay. Okay, so this is kind of in a plan phase, whereby we'll be checking, okay, these are the infrastructures that's going to be created. So let me go to the top. So first of all, we're going to create okay, the API. This is going to be the API, I think, endpoint. Sorry, Lambda integration, the routes. So it's just telling us everything that the infrastructure that is going to be created for the Lambda function to take place, including the Lambda bucket, the ownership control, and all that. So changes to output. Okay. So I think it has started creating it. Yeah. So it's done. We are done with the planning phase. What's taking place now is so it's now creating all the infrastructure, and we can remove all this with just running a simple command. So let's say after it's done creating all the infrastructure on AWS, we can remove it by simply entering our Terraform folder, and then we use Terraform destroy, and then we run it. But I don't want to destroy anything for now. So it's still creating the infrastructure. So let me pause this video. So after it's done, we will test it out and we'll see whether it will work. Now, unfortunately, I don't know why most of these Lambda function always takes time. So in the meanwhile, while this is still loading, while we are still waiting for this, what we can do is that we can build our front end. Okay, so we can enter into our front end. Let me see if I've already entered into it before. I think it should be there. Okay, now we can enter into our front end and run npm. We can run this npm install. We run this. So meanwhile, while we are still waiting for our Lambda function or Lambda code to be created, we'll be running this. We'll install our the dependencies and all that, and then after that we're going to build it. Okay, so it's done. So the next thing we're going to do, while we are still waiting for this to be done, the next thing we're going to do is that we're going to build it. npm build. We're going to build it. So as we build it, okay, so I spelled it wrong, I think. Okay, npm run build, my bad, I made a mistake. npm run build. So as we build this, we should create a /dist folder right here. As we still wait for our Lambda code to be created. Okay, it's building. So it's still creating, so let me wait. This is done, but this isn't. So this is done, and it has already created a /dist folder right here. So the next thing you're going to do, while we are still waiting for this one, we can upload the front end code. Okay. Oh my god, I think we're out of data. Well, this is still being created. Let me run it again. I think I almost ran out of data. Why isn't this not working? Our Lambda code to finish, which is still taking a long period of time. I don't really know why this is taking a long period. Now let us deploy our front end code. Front end code is not really so hard. All we just need to do is that you can log into Netlify. Log into Netlify. This is log into Netlify. Log in. Add your credentials and all that. Connect your repo, and then it should take you to this page right here. So all you just need to do is go to upload your folder. So you look for your /dist folder, upload it. This will upload all the files from dist and all that. Just say upload. Please only do this if you're done running your front end, your backend code. This is still taking time, and I want to cut this tutorial short so it shouldn't be long. So I'm just doing this. So it is uploading the /dist folder over to. Okay, this says this may cause an error by ad blocker. Why is this causing an error? So I refreshed my browser and I restarted it, and then it started working all of a sudden, and it worked. So let us go and preview. Let us go and see how. As you can see, it was published. So now I want to let's preview. Let's see the project. Oh wow, okay, wow. So if this was actually done, we should have replaced the API gateway URL. But then because of the fact that this is taking so long, we should have replaced the gateway URL with this right here. but because of the fact that this is taking so long and I want to cut this tutorial short, unfortunately I have to actually stop this function right here. But this should, I don't know why it takes time. As you can see, the text connection to not work, right? Because the API gateway URL doesn't simply exist. So we have to, because of my data and because of the length of this, I want it to be short. So I have to cut the tutorial short here. But if you wait for this to work, this should work. And then you just do the rest and it will work. It should work like that. But unfortunately, so this is it. So I told you this is my project. It performs a web search, it sets reminder, it allows you to ask questions, and it googles it for you and all that, just using a voice format. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for this, and please subscribe and like my channel, please. Thank you. God bless.